Welcome to the first drink discussion organized by Bright Blue. My name is Kelly Agathos. I'm a presenter, performer, and trainer living in Brussels, and I'm going to be your host for tonight. Our discussion is going to focus on life in Brussels from an expat perspective. As a Greek living in Brussels, I am very much part of the vibrant community of Brussels. We have sourced questions from the Facebook group Expats in Brussels, and we're going to meet a bunch of other expats that live and work in Brussels to hear their views about life in this wonderful city.
Hi, I'm Patrick Jeffries. I'm 34 years old and I'm from the UK. I've lived in Brussels for 4 years now. My day-to-day life, I'm an e-commerce operations specialist in the e-commerce sector.
My name is John Wubbe. I am a Swiss-Dutch citizen working in Brussels and also being part of Brussels.
Sarah van der Zande. I'm half Dutch, half English, living in Brussels for 10 years. In daily life, I'm a youth worker and I love to do improv in my free time, and I love music and the vibrant community of Brussels.
Wietse Vendergast, that is a name of Frisian heritage, a renegade province in the north of Holland. I was born in the Chinese Year of the Tiger, and since 4 or 5 years I'm now living in Brussels. And I work in education and media production, and very happy to be part of this debate today.
All right, everybody. So the questions that we're going to ask you today have been sourced from the Facebook group Expats in Brussels. And the first one, which was one of the most popular ones, that comes from Elizabeth. She asks, Belgian fries or French fries?
Well, I am from Brabant and living abroad where there is no decent fry to be found. And I don't talk about the big M's and so on, because that's not fried. But the real Belgian fried is, of course, much better as any French fried, because they are thicker, they are specially boiled, they are on 2 different temperatures. So for that reason, Belgian fries.
Okay, resounding Belgian fries all the way. And Wietse, what do you think is the best place to get fries in Brussels?
I have to stick with my neighborhood, of course. I mean, I live close to Place Flagey, and there you have the famous Friet Flagey. And my first job, he was for a law firm, and I had to walk via Place Flagey to the office, work till late at evening, walk back at 8:30, past Friet Flagey, the smells. So I have a love-hate relationship. They are too good to be ignored. And then obviously the battle is between Place Flagey friet and Place Jourdan friet.
Yes, Maison Antoine. Does anyone here a fan of Maison Antoine? No?
Too commercial.
We're good?
I actually have never heard of that one, to be honest. To be honest, I'm going to side with Sarah on this one. I'm not a big French fry or Belgian fries fan. I'm trying to stay healthy, so it's not something my normal choice, but I do find it fascinating seeing people queuing for almost like 20 minutes to get it. I find that just quite baffling. But I know Belgium is famous for the fries, so this must be, I've heard it's because of the sauces, apparently. I have heard that.
I want to say something about the sauces. I do love the sauce culture of Belgium. Like they have a couple of sauces that have names where they're supposed to be coming from, and they have nothing to do, like the Andalous. I don't think Andalusia has this sauce. The samurai, it's far away from any Asian type of food that I've ever eaten. And there's another one. Brazil sauce.
That's my favorite one. Okay. I do not know where it's from. It's like honey, mustard.
Yeah, sweet one, yeah.
It's
very
fascinating.
Nice. Yeah. So that I'll give them that. They're creative with their sauces.
Okay, so the minority of you are friet fans, but what about, is there an underrated Belgian dish that you think doesn't get enough press on the international scale? Yep, you got one?
Flemish stew.
Really?
Love it. I'm obsessed with that. It's the one thing I always get if I go to a restaurant. I think it's just really well made.
What's its name again?
I just call it Flemish stew.
Carbonade.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely one that I try and encourage people to try.
Of course, I love to have the mussels. The mussels are the most and the best and the most beautiful ones, especially if you go to different places. Don't go at the Beenhouwerstraat, only go to Cher Leon, because everything else is worse. But of course, the Vlaamse Steenweg, going to Katrin, you know, you can walk in. And only talking about the dishes that we did today, it's, you know, we could talk hours about the beautiful Belgian food, especially the Brussels food, especially the food that comes from the sea, because it's close to the sea. Where I live in Zurich, don't eat seafood. It's stupid.
What is the most important language to know in Brussels, French or Dutch?
Well, if you want to work, you should learn Dutch, because the majority of the economy of Brussels is around the Dutch area. Although the people in the bubble of Europe think, with 35%, that they are the biggest bubble, but the biggest bubble economic scene is Dutch. So that's why Dutch is a more important language as anyone else.
Let's get another Dutch speaker's perspective. Sarah, do you have something to say?
I live and work in Molenbeek. And I work as a youth worker, so the majority of people I work with are between 16 and 25. And they were born and raised in Brussels, but have parents that come from elsewhere, or have grandparents that come from elsewhere. So amongst other things, Moroccan, Congolese, Rwandese, Eritrea, as many others as well. A lot of these young kids speak a little bit of Dutch, but most of these kids that I work with are Francophone. Also, having lived everywhere in Brussels, daily life is French. Daily life is French, and I think that's the reality of Brussels. That's why I also speak fluent French, because I think when I want to live in Brussels, I will speak French. If I want to speak Dutch, I will live in Ghent or Antwerp.
Looking at it from an expat perspective, though, I know that Brussels is in Flanders, but the minute you're in Brussels, I feel like you can get by with French. I mean, hell, you can even get by with just English if you're an expat, because everyone also speaks English. But the minute I step out of Brussels, if I don't speak Dutch, I do feel like I am being judged. And I just wanted to know, does anyone else feel discriminated against in Brussels for not knowing one of the languages?
Confession from the English guy, I don't speak French or Dutch. I've been here 4.5 years, and I'm kind of ashamed of that. I have started trying to learn French, and it's just something that's not going down very well. I'm not good with languages, but in Britain, we do French in school, but it's just not taken seriously. It's a bit of a joke. And I remember saying I'm never going to need French, and then I end up living in this French-speaking country. So yeah, it is. But I've never struggled. I think I've always got by. There's a couple of occasions where it's been a bit of a challenge, but yeah.
John, last point.
Reality is, because I work for MVA, we work for the government, and we are having a huge unemployment in Brussels. So we try to get all those people that are Francophone, are coming from diverse places, to get them work, for example, at Zaventem or just around the corner. And that's why the reality check is, if you don't speak Dutch, you're not going to have work, because in the Wallonie there is no job, in Brussels there is no job, or not enough jobs, let's say it like that. I'm not against Francophone, but if you're in Brussels, why you are living there, why not, use that, like in Fribourg in Switzerland, speak different countries, use the time that you are there to learn the different languages of the country. We also have German, huge place to go for there are jobs enough. So only going by diversity and say like, oh, but this is the reality. Well, they are unemployed, and that's not the place you want to be.
Last one, please.
Because my reality is that I work with these kids for 3 years now every day. So I would love for you to come and have a chat with them. Because even though maybe they don't have a job and they're not in the statistics, they're very self-organizing. They find their subsidies, they find their people who support them, they find their projects, and they make their projects by themselves. They're very, very self-organized. And that's what I find beautiful about these youngsters. And I think we have to realize that maybe that's the way forward.
It's interesting to see that this is like, even though none of us are Belgian at the table, we all feel very strongly about language. And I'm very curious to see what Belgians watching this will think about our take on it, about the diversity of language in Brussels, about whether everyone should be bilingual or not. But I'd like to change the page right now. I'd like to go to a question from Arthur, who asks if it is hard to find love in Brussels. And I'm going to direct that to you, Patrick.
Hello. So, yes, I have struggled a little bit, mainly because I think there's a banter that I have with English people and with Americans and Australians that it just doesn't click with
The cultural thing.
the cultural,
because we've got all these cultures together.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's my sense of humour is very self-deprecating, and I take the mick out of myself all the time, and people just don't get it. No. But I'm now I'm actually dating someone in Amsterdam who is English. So I've definitely struggled on the dating scene in Brussels. I found it.
The thing about Brussels that I find interesting is that a lot of people, at least from the expat community, they come here for a few years, they might stay, they might go off again. So there might also be this short-term mentality, like how long am I actually here for? Yeah. Has anyone here felt that or struggled because of that? Is anyone in a relationship with someone in Brussels? Oh, great, John.
Enlighten us.
Well, not because I'm in a relationship, but due to the privacy, I didn't talk about that forward. So yes, I did come to her 7 years ago. It's complex because you have. She's coming, of course, like all the Belgians are coming to Brussels as a big city, so they are not really Brussels. At the same time, after, for example, some of the guys are coming in 35 years ago, then there are Brusselaars, and everyone is, because I know many cities, Brussels is one of those cities that you feel connected to very fast. And with the people that are there, I also know a Zinneke, so not a Brusselaar that calls herself or himself, or but someone that really was born here, and they are getting almost extended.
Yes, explain that a little bit.
And Zinneke, as a Ketje. Ketje is someone who really, with their parents came from here.
So Ketje is a Brussels born and bred, and Zinneke is someone who came to Brussels
who's half the way. Only one of them is coming from Brussels, and everyone who comes in is a Brusselaar.
And everyone who comes in is a Brusselaar. I thought Zinneke was a type of dog.
Yes. Well, that's the dog that is standing somewhere.
I can have the story about it.
Oh yes, please.
So Zinneke comes from the river Zenne that flows actually still underneath Brussels for a part. So there's parts where you can actually see the Zenne, the river, and from that kind of derivative from that name came Zinneke. And Zinneke were indeed the street dogs, the dogs that live on the street. They were called Zinnekes, and after a while the kids also got that name, like a Zinneke person, like a person who lives in Brussels. But a cat, that's actually someone who was born in Brussels and bred and raised.
And Sarah, I'd like your perspective as a woman, because I found that when I moved back here 10 years ago, I was going to parties and it was always something like 30% guys and 70% girls. And so I felt like women had an extra barrier to the whole people are here only temporarily, so can you even build something? There was also the statistics, like you had far more women than you had guys. Have you seen that? Have you found that? Or do you think that it's not that bad?
I definitely want to kind of go back to that transient nature of Brussels, that people feel like they don't really want to or going to stay here for a long time, but in the end everyone gets stuck. And I think people also get stuck in their relationship status because they still have this idea, I might leave, so they won't commit. So it is a weird thing, and I did experience the kind of the off numbers. I don't know. I'm also not in a relationship, and I've been in Brussels for 10 years. I've had a couple of short-term relationships in Brussels, but also I have not really. And I do agree with you, Patrick. The banter, I'm half. I do like a lot of weird wordplay and self-deprecating humor and all that. I really miss that a little bit as well, because sometimes Belgians, I love them. But they can be stern sometimes. They can take themselves sometimes a little bit too seriously. But I do think that about the Dutch as well, eh? So it's yeah.
So I'd like to go back to you, Patrick, because you're a gay man living in Brussels, and the gay district has got a rainbow crossing now, just like San Francisco. That's recent. In Visit Brussels, the tourist website, it says that the gay scene is discreet, varied, and welcoming, and it certainly paints itself as a cosmopolitan, liberal, and tolerant city. Do you feel like that's the reality, or do you find that Brussels is homophobic? What do you think?
I agree with the description, apart from calling it discreet, I don't think it's discreet at all. I think it's fantastic that they've got this. It's similar to, we have Soho in London. You have we call it the gay village, but here it's I can't pronounce it, Rue de Marché au Charbon.
Yeah.
And it's a set area, and I think that's fantastic. It's right in front of the police station as well, so if there's any problems, there's kind of that support there. In terms of, is Belgium homophobic? I've not had any issues with it. I've been very lucky. However, if I leave the bars with my boyfriend, holding hands, as soon as I get to La Bourse, I drop the hand, because that's just that centralized fear that I've kind of grown up with, that you never know if someone's going to have a problem with it. And that's not a Brussels issue, that's a global issue. I've had it in Barcelona, I've had it in London, I've had it in Australia. In terms of acceptance of LGBTQ lifestyle in Brussels, I think it is good, but that's only coming from someone who's not had a problem. But I do know that people have been mugged and beaten when they've left the gay area in the city centre. If it's at like 2 a.m, those things do happen. And I have also heard reports that the police aren't very helpful when it comes to that. They can be quite derogatory about it and kind of dismissive of it. So that's the experience I've heard of, really.
Sarah, you had something to add?
As being pan myself, I love men and women, and I've kind of have not experienced the very welcoming to meet women. It's very difficult to go to this area because it's all very based on men.
I've heard that too.
So,
from my lesbian friends, I know that there was only one lesbian bar. It shut down.
Yeah.
I think there's really like the gay scene is more man-centered than female-centered.
Yeah, so I think it's difficult for women to find a place to go. I know in Excel there's a crazy circle, but as far as the center concerned, I don't really know any places. And I think for the rest, people are very open about it in Brussels, very okay about it. At the same time, have heard incidents very recently also in Antwerp and in Ghent about people being beaten up, in Vilvoorde even, I think, a couple of months ago. So I think there's work to be done, but I think in Brussels, even my friends walked hand in hand in Molenbeek and it was okay.
We live here, we work here, our daily life is here. And I remember that at the last electoral campaign for the local elections in 2019, there were flyers being sent to our mailboxes telling us, the expats, come on guys, get involved. I don't know how involved they got in the end. I know one person who ran for office that was Danish, but I'd like to know how involved you get into local politics, community, local life. And I'm going to start with you, Witse. Like, how much do you actually know about Belgian politics, since you're talking about the mayor, etc.?
I'm just going to start that answer with a little. The thing is, for example, in New York, if you walk out of the United Nations, you walk into Times Square. So that intermingling of the international scene and the local scene is much more, so that would definitely, because I think Brussels has potential to be both a Washington and a New York. So that's first of all. Belgian politics, it's complicated, just like, many a Facebook status.
But I'm interested in knowing how involved you are, though. I mean, does everyone here know who the Prime Minister is? Do we know, can you name,
Sophie Wells. I'll pass it to John, but definitely. I came here to be a real part of this city.
Okay. Cool, John, tell us.
Well, I'm actually part of the Flemish Club, so that means that we are a pluralistic since 1923. That means that we are involving everyone. That means that in my Facebook, let's keep it by Facebook, Pascal Smet is a friend of me, Guy van Impe, Van Hengel is a friend of me, Sven Katz is a friend of me, and I really meet all those people, so I'm really interacting in the political area. I'm also at the Wetstraat, and I'm also getting astonished about the different communities, the local barons, because there is not one mayor. Every commune has their own mayor and their own governmental cabinet and so on. So let's bring all those different communes back on the one place, and that is working out. But as an expat, we did, last time you were talking about that, we did at the end, from the 35% that was there, we did get 9% to the polls.
So on top of having the expat bubble, the Walloon bubble, the Flemish bubble, there's also this this lack of communication, I feel, between all of them. So it is vital that we all talk together.
And that's where we as expats have a task to take. We have to take it up. We are taking it up, at least, with the people I know. We have have a Holland House coming to the Place Luxemburgplein, because we are bilingual in Brussels, you know, because that's official as it is. That's a reality. What will be the future, I don't know. That we have more than 160 languages. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with having these things, because it's chances that you are having. But just what I do not like is, like we have 0 to 9, great, but there are 35%. So guys, as expats, get involved locally, get out of your bubble. I have more than 400 Belgian friends. And I'm a Swiss guy. So for that reason, I also got another 400 that are expats, you know, but it is there where you're getting involved with everyone, because it's about the human beings. It's not about where you come from. It's not about your color. Make sure that you're actually adding something to the community. Don't start to blame others. Don't start to mourn about Brussels. Do something.
But I haven't been involved in politics at all. I think the last couple of years I've been too distracted by what's going back in my own country with Brexit, which has kind of thrown me off. But it's something I do want to get more involved in. But I think if you think in terms of what we were discussing earlier, and the fact that a lot of people come here thinking they're going to be here for 2 years. So they don't really get as involved, because they're thinking, well, I'm not really going to make as much an impact. So maybe they do start changing, kind of like when they start staying longer.
What I'd like to close this with a round table. I'd like us all to take a minute. Like Robin from the expat group on Facebook has asked, what advice would you give newcomers to Brussels? And I'd like you all to give one sentence with your advice for newcomers to Brussels. And we'll start with you, Patrick.
Okay, if you don't speak one of the languages, take someone with you to the commune. Because it can be horrific. My first experience of the commune when I first moved here was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. So if you don't speak the language, don't risk it. Take someone with you who speaks the local language to help you get through that situation.
When you're new to Brussels, be careful with the French fries and go for the sprouts.
Well, everyone that is new to Brussels should learn something from the history. Come to the Flemish Club for arts, for science, and for literature, because we are giving a lot of that kind of information about where you are. If you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going, and it's still that way. And we have a lot of things at the Flemish Club that are expats involved, French people involved, Flemish, Dutch speaking involved. And then you learn something from where you are, because expats on themselves are actually not easy to get out of the bubble. Try something. Come out of the bubble, come to the Flemish Club, and you get interacted with the local people.
And one thing I'd like to end with is if you're coming to Brussels, check out the artistic scene. It's growing more and more vibrant by the day. Whether you go to see something Belgian, like we have a huge tradition in dance here, international dance. There's art galleries sprouting up every other month. I professionally do improvised theater in English in Brussels as well as in French. So make sure you check out the cultural tips for what to do in Brussels, because you'd be surprised by how much you can do and the level of the quality of what you can do. Thank you.